Okay, welcome to this Section 24 A-Level Anthology by Karen Armstrong, Enlightenment, from the A-Level Buddhism course. Let's read it. The Nada Katha emphasizes the need for courage and determination. It shows Gautama engaged in a heroic struggle against all those forces within himself which militate against the achievement of Nibbana. As we read that after Gautama had eaten his dish of junket, he strode as majestically as a lion toward the Bodhi tree to make his last bid for liberation, determined to reach his goal that very night. First, he circled the tree, trying to find the place where all the previous Buddhas had sat when they had won through to Nibbana. But wherever he stood, the broad earth heaved and sunk as though it was a huge cartwheel lying on its hub. Someone was treading on its rim. Eventually, Gautama approached the eastern side of the tree. When he stood there, the ground remained still. Gautama decided this must be the immovable spot on which all previous Buddhas had positioned themselves. So he sat down in the asana position facing the east, the region of the dawn, in the firm expectation he was about to begin a new era in the history of humanity. Let my skin and sinews and bones dry up together with all the flesh and blood of my body, and I will welcome it, Gautama vowed. But I will not move from this spot till I've attained the supreme and final wisdom. So let's look at this section. What is why is Armstrong? What is his continued use of a late hagiography? Is it justified? The Nyada Katha emphasizes the need for courage and determination. So this 5th century AD text uses this reference to these virtues, courage and determination. And we do find these in the Pali Canon, and which are changed and developed, of course, by Mahayana. Again, she does not explain any of this or identify the significant differences. She just harvests it for her purposes, her use. Is Armstrong applying a modern Western psychological interpretation of Buddhism? It shows Gautama engaged in the heroic, there's an interesting word, the heroic struggle against all those forces within himself which militate against the achievement of nirvana. Does remind one of the heroic struggle of the hero's journey, Jungian story, mythology, a story we all are part of it. And those forces, what are those forces? Well, it does sound a bit Freudian or Jungian. Within himself. Let's militate. So, echoes of a heroic struggle, perhaps echoes of her, maybe as well, her big history interpretive lens. She's unwittingly using the hero with 1,000 faces, Joseph Campbell's book, echoing Jungian mythological structure of the journey of the archetypal hero found in world myths. And it's a very thorough, achievement of Nibbana. So when she narrates the end of asceticism and the enlightenment of the Buddha, where is she reading all this? We read, well, where do we read? She doesn't tell us because it's a populist text. After Gautama had eaten his dish of junket, strode majestic like a lion to the Bodhi tree and made his last bid for liberation, determined to reach his goal that very night. But where? Where is it we read this phrase? So it's hard to take her seriously when um, she doesn't give us any references, not in the back of the book or in footnotes, to the material she's drawing from as being non-historical and mythical. The poetic and hagiographic language she employs, majestically as a lion towards the Bodhi tree, majestically as a lion. He strode, that's a very hagiographic look, hero-like striding. But that's probably not her language. She's picking this up from other hagiographic accounts. Probably this 5th century Nyada Katha. Its need, the heroic virtues of courage and determination, all are being in view here. Let's keep going. What is the tree she describes the Buddha as circling? He circled the tree trying to find the place where all the previous Buddhas had sat and won through to nirvana. Well, presumably the Bodhi tree, the fabled religious Figius, but this is not the Pali Canon. It's importantly, this is the Nyada Katha. All the previous Buddhas makes it sound like there were many, but of course early Buddhists believed there were only 2, later 7, and finally 25 in the previous lives of the Buddha. And by the time of the Jakata, the Nyada Katha, there are 550 folk tales in the Jakata Tatha Katha, this text. 550. Well, just how many are there? She doesn't engage with any of this, how much is to be believed or not. So what is the symbolism of the idea of weight? Where he stood, the broad earth heaved and sunk as though a huge cartwheel lying on its side, its hub, and somebody was treading on the rim. So Armstrong agreeing seems to be using a hagiographic reference to the idea of the Buddha's work of enlightenment. It's weight, like an great elephant that symbolized when he was born, he was conceived. He is a being of substance, of great weight. Let's read on. What is the symbolism of the East? Eventually, Gautama approached the eastern side of the tree where he stood there, and the ground remained still. This eastern side, well, what's the symbolism of that? He doesn't attempt to explain. She doesn't explain the hagiographic symbolism of the East, but later we could explain this as a symbol of light, of where the sun rises from, therefore of enlightenment, and as a kind of well-known Eastern concept. So, what is the immovable spot? The immovable spot. Gautama decided this must be the immovable spot. In Armstrong, some of this is cut. In a cut section that's in the original chapter, she does go into this in some depth. And the immovable spot is a psychological state in her thinking, which enables us to see the world and ourselves in perfect balance. A kind of Freudian, Jungian vantage point to see the world's archetypes, to see from the collective unconscious or the unconscious. Without this psychological stability, this correct orientation, enlightenment is impossible. But it's very different to the way Theravada Buddhists would think about it, perhaps, or Mahayana. What is the asana position? And really, did the Buddha use it? So he sat down in the asana position, facing the east. There's the east again. the region of the dawn. Well, maybe that's important. So he doesn't give us any scholarly argument for accepting this 5th century account and its hagiographic details. The paintings of the Buddhist practice adopt perfunctorily the folded legs of the asana lotus position, but it's not necessary. And again, none of us know this. He could have been standing on his head. We just don't know. These are later presumptions, because the asana position was a position that signified meditation. But people can do meditation in all sorts of positions. So is Armstrong's axial age thinking in view here, in the firm expectation that he was about to begin a new era in the history of humanity? This is, she thinks, the axial age movement for the hero, the Jungian hero, to forge a new ground, a new era in big history. She then quotes almost directly the Nyaya Katha. This is what she's quoting here, but fails to give literary critical explanation of where this quote is from, and it's from an earlier training tradition of the of the Apathavana Sutta. So this idea of relentlessly. She then quotes the Nyaya Katha text again, but without attempt identifying or explaining this in the original, as far as we know, a populist statement attributed to the Buddha, but it's no older than 500 AD. It pervades the internet, but this is hagiographic. But this hagiographic statement. Let my sinews, let's keep going here. Let my sinews and bones dry up together with all the flesh of my body and blood. I will welcome. Siddhar Gautama vowed. So this is the Apathavana Sutta. So to finish, these things she quotes, but I will not move from this spot till I've attained supreme and final wisdom, are sort of traditional statements that function as much as a creed, but it's not a quote from the Pali Canon included in some later text. This is to confuse the account of the Buddha and undermines attempts actually at historical reconstruction that certainly people like Nanamoli would try to do by harvesting bits from the Pali Canon of the actual events of his enlightenment. So this was section 23.